Hey, my lilies. Welcome back to Ink and Impact. And if you've been here following season 2, you already know we're going into this season with perspective is everything. Because sometimes the thing that needs to change isn't our situation, it's the way we're looking at it. And today, I want to talk about something that might make us uncomfortable: idols versus humans. Now, before you think I'm about to tell you that you can't have celebrities like that you admire and stuff like that, people you look up to, or people whose work changed your life, that's not what I'm saying at all. Because let's be honest, there are people who have impacted the world in ways that we can't deny. Michael Jackson, Prince, Queen Elizabeth, and so many others. We remember their names. We study their careers. We talk about their accomplishments. We remember what they wore, what they said, who they dated, how they died, where they lived, what they created, and sometimes we know more about the lives of the people we never met than we know about our own. And that's where I want us to pause, because here's the question: why are other people's names sometimes more important to us than the life we're creating for ourselves? The human behind the name. Think about the people we call icons. We don't usually talk about them as ordinary people. We talk about them as legends. Michael Jackson becomes Michael Jackson the icon. Prince becomes the Prince the genius. Queen Elizabeth becomes the queen. And then, and there's nothing inherently wrong with recognizing someone's greatness. But somewhere along the way, we can forget that these people were human. They had fears, insecurities, bad days, private struggles, questions, regrets, relationships that didn't work, decisions they probably wish they could have changed. They laughed, they cried, they got angry, they got tired, they made mistakes. They were human. But when we turn somebody into an idol, we often remove the human name. Oh my gosh. I just really have to laugh at myself on that one. We often remove the humanity from them. We create an image and then we compare ourselves to the image. And that's dangerous because you can't compete with an image. You can't compete with someone's highlight reel. You can't compete with a legacy that took decades to build while you're looking at your own life in the middle of the process. Too much, overwhelming. Admiration versus idolization. There's a difference between saying, I admire what this person accomplished, and saying, I need to become them. One inspires you, the other can erase you. And sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. We borrow someone else's style, someone else's personality, someone else's definition of success, somebody else's dream, somebody else's timeline. And eventually, we're living a life that looks impressive from the outside, but doesn't actually belong to us. That's when admiration becomes dangerous because inspiration is supposed to point to you, toward your purpose. It shouldn't pull you away from it. Now, why do we know their names? Here's the part that really makes me think. Why do we remember the names of people who changed the world, but struggle to remember what we actually want? Why can we tell you someone's entire career, but can't tell you what we're passionate about? Why can we quote celebrities, but we don't know what we believe? Why can we recognize someone's somebody else's voice immediately, but have trouble hearing our own? Maybe it's because studying somebody else's life is easier than building your own. There's less risk when you're watching someone else's story. You don't have to fail. You don't have to be rejected. You don't have to wonder whether your dream is going to work. You don't have to make a decision. Maybe it's because studying somebody else's life is easier than building your own. And when you're watching somebody else's story, you don't have to risk anything. You don't have to fail. You don't have to be rejected. You don't have to wonder if your dream is actually going to work. You're just watching. But when you start creating your own life, now you have to choose. You have to move. You have to take the risk. You have to be okay with people not understanding you. And honestly, that can be scary. And sometimes we become spectators of greatness instead of participants in our own. And I think that's something worth asking ourselves. I am I admiring somebody else's life, or am I avoiding building my own? Now, perspective against perspective. This is how I literally came up with this concept for this topic. This brings me back to the theme, basically, because perspective is everything. Because maybe the problem isn't that you have people you admire. Maybe the problem is the way you see yourself compared to them. You look at someone else and say, they're amazing, they're talented, they're successful, they're destined for greatness. And then you look at yourself and say, I'm behind. I'm not talented enough. I'm too old. I missed my opportunity. Someone already did what I wanted to do. And suddenly, somebody else's greatness becomes evidence that you can't be great too. But what if we change that? What if their success wasn't proof that you couldn't? What if it was proof that you could? Instead of, I wish I was them. What if you said, what can I learn from them? There's a completely different perspective because you're no longer trying to become somebody else. You're allowing their journey to teach you something about your own perspective. Your life deserves a name too. And this is what I really want somebody listening to hear. You don't have to become famous. You don't need a million of followers. You don't need your name remembered for generations. But you do need to know who you are. You need to know what you are building. You need to know what matters to you. Because there is danger in becoming so fascinated with the lives of other people created that you never create your own. Now, maybe your life won't look like Michael Jackson's. Maybe it won't look like Prince's. Maybe it won't look like anybody you've admired. And that's okay. It's not supposed to. Your assignment isn't to recreate somebody else's life. It's to discover what you're supposed to do with yours. And maybe right now, you don't know exactly what that is. And that's okay too. You don't have to have the entire story figured out. You just have to start writing your part. Now, the real question here, So maybe the question isn't who's your idol? Maybe the better question is, what does my admiration reveal about me? Because what we admire can tell us something. Maybe you admire someone's confidence because you're learning to find your own. Maybe you're admiring someone's creativity because there's a creative part of you that you've been ignoring. Maybe you admire someone's courage because there's something you're afraid to do. Maybe you're admiring someone's discipline because you need more structure. Maybe you're admiring someone's faith because you're searching for something deeper. Pay attention to that. Because sometimes what we admire in other people is a clue about what we're supposed to develop within ourselves. Now, don't forget the human. So, admire people, celebrate people, learn from people, honor the legacies that deserve to be honored, but don't forget something. They were human too, and so are you. They had beginnings, they had processes, they had moments nobody saw, they had failures nobody celebrated, and so do you. So don't become so fascinated with the people who made history that you forget you're currently writing yours. And maybe nobody knows your name yet. Maybe nobody sees what you're building. Maybe nobody understands the vision. Maybe you're still figuring it out. And that's okay. Because the goal was never to become somebody else's idol. The goal was to become fully yourself. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I wish I could be like them, pause and ask yourself, what is it about them that I'm actually longing to see in myself? Maybe the idol isn't the destination. Maybe they're the mirror of who you're trying to become. And that's the perspective shift we needed all along. We don't have to stop admiring other people. We just have to make sure that while we're watching their story, we don't abandon our own. This is Ink and Impact. And remember, my lilies, perspective is everything. I'll see you in the next one.